Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because, well, we're tackling a topic that is just universally relatable. It's incredibly challenging, but it's absolutely vital for your career. Today, we're focusing on a highly practical framework, straight from our source material, all about a really crucial process: rebuilding your self-confidence after a nasty confrontation at work. You know, we've literally all been there, and the lingering effects, they can really shake your foundation. But our source gives us this direct, no-nonsense roadmap to reclaim that professional confidence. So let's break it all down.
Okay, let's dive into this. Experiencing a toxic workplace conflict or a really nasty confrontation, it carries a massive emotional weight, right? It can leave you in total shock, doubting your own abilities, and dreading your very next interaction. It's not just an argument, it's a full-blown event that completely disrupts your professional equilibrium. So how do you actually recover from that? Well, our source material doesn't just tell us to, get over it. Instead, it provides a very specific, actionable sequence for recovery.
Part 1. Rebuilding after a confrontation. This is our overarching goal, and we're using our source material as a focused roadmap to get that shaken confidence back.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact chronological recovery journey you can use to navigate the aftermath of a conflict. Rebuilding is a super active process. It implies something was knocked down and now you've got to put the pieces back together so you're stronger than before. There is a critical reason for this exact order. First up, you dispel difficult communication to deal with that immediate external noise. I mean, you can't heal if you're still actively under attack, right? Second, you identify your personal fears. You kind of turn inward to do that quiet, introspective work, but only after your external environment is secure. And third, you take actions to reduce stress, moving back outward with practical application. It's just a beautifully structured three-part harmony of recovery: external boundary, internal reflection, and actionable resolution.
Section 2 is all about that very first phase, dispelling difficult communication. This is where we actively address that initial interpersonal clash. You absolutely cannot begin to rebuild your professional confidence if you're still out there actively absorbing toxic messaging. So before any internal healing can even start, you have to actively address the initial clash. The source material is super specific here. It says you must know how to dispel each difficult communication. Notice that word "each"? This isn't about just vaguely ignoring the overarching problem. It's about breaking down the confrontation into its individual little components. You literally have to figure out how to specifically neutralize every single instance of difficult communication you face. Because by dismantling the conflict piece by piece, you strip away its power over your day-to-day workflow, and that stops it from constantly disrupting your focus.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it anchors the absolute most vital internal mindset shift you need to execute that first step. And it's a super simple mantra: don't take it personally. Look, when someone lashes out in a nasty confrontation, it's so incredibly easy to internalize it, to see it as a reflection of your own worth. But by depersonalizing the communication, you instantly neutralize its sting. It stops being this huge attack on your character and simply becomes a communication issue to be managed. This fundamental shift, it's exactly what allows you to enforce the boundaries we were just talking about.
Moving into part 3, identifying personal fears. Because once that external communication is neutralized, the journey requires us to turn inward. So once you've established that external boundary, the whole framework requires a pivot. You've stopped the bleeding on the outside, so now you absolutely must turn inward to address the internal impact. The text explicitly instructs us here to identify personal fears. And I really want to slow down for a second here, because this is where the deep introspective work actually happens. Think about it. A nasty confrontation rarely just upsets us on the surface, right? It usually triggers something much, much deeper. Did that conflict make you fear for your job security? Did it trigger this latent fear of inadequacy, or maybe a fear of public embarrassment? Identifying the specific underlying personal fears that were triggered by the confrontation, that is literally the only way to truly reclaim your confidence. You basically have to actively name the fear if you want to tame the fear.
Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds. Actions to reduce stress. This is where we transition from internal introspection right into practical application.
All right, so once you've navigated the external communication and bravely faced down those internal fears, you don't want to just stay stuck in your head. You have to take all that internal work and apply it externally. This is really the culmination of the entire methodology. Just look at how these recovery actions stack up together. First, you start by neutralizing the difficult communication. Then you lock in that "don't take it personally" mindset. Next, you confront your internal personal fears head on. And all of that, it directly leads to the final instruction from the text: taking action to reduce the overall stress level of the work. You are taking control of your environment. You're no longer just a passive victim of a nasty confrontation, you're an active participant in lowering your own workplace stress and taking back your professional equilibrium. Which brings us to a final directive, and honestly, I want to turn that directly back onto you. What actions will you take today to reduce the stress level of your work? Reclaiming your professional confidence, well, it isn't a passive event. It's a highly active choice. Whether it's setting a brand new communication boundary, finally identifying a lingering fear, or simply just stepping away from your desk for a quick moment to breathe, the power to recover and rebuild is entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, I challenge you to put this framework into action today.